All right. Well, I will try to recover my classroom voice, speak a little louder. Some of you are thousands of miles away. and but make sure your device, I had to check my device. It was turned up all the way. So check your volume too, because maybe that could be a problem if it's not up to full volume. All right. Well, I'd love to do a weekend on all this because it took me working with the language of Jesus, which was Aramaic. So about a year and a half to 2 years. I can't remember exactly. It took me pretty much more than a month to do a rendering of each of the Beatitudes, for one thing. Uh, that was what you were hearing there was the sixth Beatitude being sung in Aramaic by that Save group, San Antonio Vocal Arts Ensemble. Uh, well, first thing is don't confuse what you're about to hear. These eight steps to becoming a full human being, real human being. Don't confuse them with Christianity in any way. Unfortunately, maybe one day Christianity will get connected to this wisdom. But Jesus was an indigenous uh, Jew that was born in the West Bank. Bethlehem's in the West Bank. It's in Palestinian territory. And this is indigenous wisdom. Jesus went out into the desert for 40 days and did a vision quest. This is indigenous wisdom, and it's wisdom that it's just like the indigenous people all over the world are coming to the point where we got to listen to their wisdom. So this is old indigenous wisdom, and unfortunately, what became because Jesus never heard the word Christian, came later with St. Paul to try to talk about the people who were the followers of the founder, the followers of the spirit of the founder. That Christ was not his last name; it was the essence and spiritual resonance with what Jesus taught. And unfortunately, it got into bed with the empire in the fourth century, and especially the fourth beatitude here would have been shelved at that time if they really even saw it as a system. The Buddha has a similar system, and other religions have similar systems. The Eightfold Path of the Buddha and the 10 ox herding pictures in Zen Buddhism, you can overlay each of those with this system. This is a systems approach, the eight Beatitudes, with these eight steps. Uh, they got called Beatitudes later. In the beginning, it was just teachings. It was a system that he gave, a system for becoming human in a whole. Yeah. So, want to really just make that point before we get started. Um, and I'm just going to go into the eight of them, and uh, and you're going to get it, on the ear of your heart at first, but at the very end, before reminding Cheryl to maybe remind me that at the very end of it, before we end the recording, I want to put the whole screensaver of all of them up, and then leave it there for the next 15 minutes before we come back for the next sitting. So the people who are listening to this later will actually see them at the very end. And you can do a screensaver of them or write them down or whatever. It's up to you, depending on it. Maybe just one of them resonates with you. Okay, but I'll have it up there for you. But it's going to come off the ear, so I'm going to really try to speak right into this so you'll be able to hear it. So I'm going to just sort of take them one by one, and but it is, if you've ever done the 12 steps, um, the AA stuff, and this is the one thing actually that Americans have come up with to add to the spiritual toolbox, the 12 steps. Well, these are 8 steps, but you don't just do them once. And sometimes you spend a lot of time on one step because that's what you need right now. Uh, but so this is this is not just some kind of progression, a linear progression that when you get to the eighth step, you're there. No, it doesn't work that way. It's a kind of more of a spiral thing. If you remember anything about the Beatitudes, uh, they give the blessing and the name, and then they say what you get from the blessing, and so there's a little payoff at the end of it in the form we got it. Uh, well, the payoff for the first step, the first beatitude, and the eighth beatitude is the same. And I remember asking a Dominican sister, "Did Jesus just run out of payoffs or something?" He's repeating himself. And, you know, standard Dominican answer, "Well, I don't know, Joseph. That's a mystery, isn't it? Let's ponder that." But I think it's because it's a spiral, it's a circle, it's not a linear thing, it's not a one and done thing. No. So anyway, let's just go into it. The first one, and we'll check your if you had any kind of Bible school or catechism or anything. If you were raised in the Christian tradition, you might remember some of these. But it's very interesting and telling that about that none of the official religious people I've worked with, priests or nuns, could give me the eight in order, as if they were random. They're not. They build. It's a system. Uh, we'll be talking about the systemic nature of it. Well, the first one, if you're reading the King James version, uh, it would be blessed are the poor in spirit. Kingdom of heaven is theirs. Well, I would listen to this in Aramaic for about a month. I would listen to it, I would chant it, and then I'd sit with it, and then I'd write whatever came out of it. And after about 30 of those sittings, I came up with this. And this was about 20 years ago, and it's it still holds true for me. If it doesn't hold true, as I revisit it, I change it. I've changed it a little bit, but this is the first one. Ripening are the humble. Now, the key word that's changed there was a revelation to me was blessed are the, blessed are the, blessed are the. Well, in in Aramaic, the word was tub veun, and a tube means ripe. Tub veun means ripening, and so these are stages of ripening, 8 stages of ripening. Imagine a green peach and then an absolutely luscious peach that is totally ripe. The green peach isn't bad, and the ripe peach isn't good. It's just they're different stages of ripeness. Right away, it gets you out of the realm of good and bad and gets you into the realm of the real world here. Human beings are like the peach. We're organic. We have wisdom. We have intelligence. We have consciousness. That's a difference, but it's about ripening into a full human being. Ripening are the humble who know in their wisdom that sacred breath is their only possession, and that in this poverty they are fully empowered. I'll read it to you again. Ripening are the humble. So the first step really is humility. Ripening are the humble who know in their wisdom that sacred breath is their only possession, and that in this poverty they are fully empowered. When Jesus was, what got translated as the poor in spirit, um, it has more about humility, humbleness. The word humbleness comes from humus. You got your feet on the ground, and there's a clear connection with this in the first step in the 12 steps. You know, they say that when you hit bottom, you come to the 12 steps. When everything falls apart, when things don't work out, when you can't beat your addiction, and we'll be talking about addictions here. Uh, uh, you're humbled, and then when you can't figure out anything else, you come to this. And so to be humbled is a good. In the 12 steps, you're really realizing that you've tried everything, it doesn't work. If you could say anything about the 12 steps, they say you better find something more powerful than your own ego, because it is not enough, and that is very humbling, because we're raised to think I can do it. So this humility is key for the start. It's the same in the first step of the 12 steps. I made a mess of this. I need the help of some higher power of your own. That doesn't. It talks about the higher power. I like to talk about the deeper power, the central power, the one that's in you. Jesus said it was in you and it was all around you. In other words, a vast system that we're part of, but also the very center is in you. Yeah, so that's the start. Now, the interesting image is in their who the humble in their wisdom know that sacred breath is their only possession. What everything else can be taken from you. We know that you could be thrown into a camp and taking your name and a number written on you, like was in the Holocaust. Uh, Anything can be taken from you. You lose everything exterior, but the sacred breath is your only possession, your connection to the spirit. And in this poverty, you are fully empowered because nobody can take that from you. That's the first. And that's you need that connection to the sacred. If you don't have it, you don't have what'll get you through anything. Now the second one follows on that. Uh, Search your mind for a minute. Do you know what comes after? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for they shall inherit of the kingdom of heaven. Is there's a second one. Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Okay, that's the second one. The way it worked out for me on the page, I was really just trying to put this out and uh, through practice into American English that made sense to me. I was just writing it for myself. Every good writer writes for the truth for themselves. So mine is ripening. So after you've been humbled, ripening are the wounded who breathe in all the pain and loss and who breathe out simply some sense of relief for themselves and for all fellow sufferers. Yeah, you might recognize this as the pinnacle practice of Tibetan Buddhism known as Tonglen. He was really talking about that. Ripening are the wounded. Now, if you spend your whole life trying to avoid being wounded, you're not going to succeed, and you're not going to have much of a life. People do, our basic operating system as a child is how to protect ourselves. Thank goodness for that. But if you have a life that's just about staying away from painful stuff and potential wounding, you're going to live a very small life. So he's saying, ripening are the wounded who breathe in all the pain and loss and who breathe out simply some sense of relief for themselves and for all fellow sufferers. So we're still working with the breath there, you see. And now, if those of you, most everybody here knows about the practice of Tonglen, he's describing that as a key part on the path. And I think it is as well. It's the pinnacle practice in Tibetan Buddhism, I think, and it's one that I use. For instance, to watch the news. To watch the news is to open yourself up to the wound. And I understand people say, well, I don't watch any news now. Well, for one thing, most so-called news on cable news is not really news at all. It's sort of information or entertainment or whatever. So you really got to watch what you're looking at in terms of to try to get an idea of what is going on the planet. We're going to talk about these are planetary. The planet is the system we got to relate to. But ripening are the wounded. When I watch the news, it's often you see the wounding of the planet. If you see good news, you see the people who are hurting, um, and it's hard to do. I pretty much do Tonglen as I watch the news. I do this practice where when I see horrific scenes, whether they're in the United States, Gaza, Sudan, China, Russia, Ukraine, you watch the news, you see the wound on the planet. Even when you watch climate news, you see the wounding on the planet. The planet is wounded itself, and to actually not to choose to do that every day is a spiritual practice. It does ripen you because you're plugging into the system of the world. You see, it helps to have a practice, and this is the practice. Somehow Jesus knew that, and we have the wounds of Christ are healing in the early Christian tradition. Uh, that when they said "Blessed are, blessed are, blessed are," bless sure. Yeah, I think in Old French. Vivian will have to chime in on this, but I was taught that blessure meant wound, and so there was always a connection between wounds and blessings. And so to try to live a life without wounds, well, you're not going to have much of a life. Now the third uh, beatitude is impossible to sort of translate in the English that we've got it. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Yeah, I'll give you $1 for every time you heard the word meek in the last week. I'll give you $1,000. You won't hear it because it has no meaning now. But Jesus was talking about something serious here. Blessed are the meek. The way I rendered this after sitting with it for about a month was ripening are the fluid who greet whatever arises as the river greets the rock with easy does it, with a rounded through, with the gentle way of water. Now, this is a profound direction. He's saying, you're starting to ripen when you become fluid, like water, and water which ripen are the fluid who greet whatever arises as the river greets the rock. Just look at that image for a minute. He does it with a rounded through, with the gentle way of water. There's an old riddle that is, what's the softest thing in the world and the hardest? And the answer to that riddle is water. Anybody who always owns a house will know this. The roof. I don't care what your roof's made of. Water will find a way. And so, in terms of ripening as a human being, we're mostly water, by the way. We're mostly this sloshing system of water and hormones and digestion and whatever, but mostly it's flow. When you stop flowing, when your blood stops flowing, you've got a blockage, you're in trouble. See, so he's saying you're starting to be ripened when you're fluid. You uh, you greet whatever arises as the river greets the rock. If you ever played scissors, paper, rock, dynamite, even, there's no water there because the game would be over because water beats everything. And so this is where martial arts comes in. It's why with all our firepower, we couldn't defeat the Vietnamese. They were fluid. They had this sense of fluidity. We have a kind of rock logic in this culture. You're seeing rock logic in the Gaza conflict with Israel. Israel's responding like we would respond with rock logic, the way we did. It wasn't even logic to bomb Iraq. They had nothing to do with what we were. But throw all this firepower in there, bomb the people, bomb. It's just power, power, power. It doesn't work. Jesus knew that. You got to remember, Jesus was an indigenous person in an occupied territory, occupied by the empire in the world, Rome. And he was trying to give people a way to deal with that, you see. This is one of the more, this one really resonates with me all the time because when I'm really stuck, I'm using rock logic. And so I remember ripening are the fluid who greet whatever arises as the river greets the rock. Now, when they say, blessed are the meek, they shall inherit the earth. Well, think about the Grand Canyon, all that rock. The river is what made that. The river beats the rock, and that's the meaning of inheriting the earth. In other words, you're stronger than the earth. We're stronger than the material because the flow is the spirit. So fluidity, that's key. That's a really helpful one in any situation when you're really beating your head against the wall, or your husband or wife. You just can't break through. It's really helped me in my 50 some years of marriage is to remember that it's fluidity. You know? Now the fourth one's going to take a little bit more time because uh, this is a really profound one. And isn't it interesting that most of us up here had Christian upbringings can't really remember the fourth one? Yeah, I wonder if anybody does. And this would be one that would be a no-no in the empire. The way it went in that we came down to us in English was, "Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after justice; they shall be filled." Sometimes it's translated as righteousness. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness. I like justice. It's a better translation for sure. They shall be filled. And so this was very interesting to work with. It was an important one for me. And so this is how it came out on my page. It makes sense to me. All right, so we got ripening are the humble, ripening are the wounded, ripening are the fluid. And now we got ripening are the soulful, who long for more than business as usual, who are truly hungry for a clearer purpose in life, and who will be satisfied only by the sharing of heaven on earth. These all echo the 8 lines in the Lord's Prayer, by the way, but we don't have enough time to go into that. But that's a big echo of on earth as it is in heaven. So this is ripening are the soulful. We spent many weeks trying to break through on this idea that maybe we have a soul, maybe we don't, and I've been really trying to suggest that we don't have a soul, or we don't have a soul, we are a soul. And so this one gets to that point. Ripening are the soulful when you actually realize that you are a soul. And you longing comes with it. It's a different kind of longing. You long for more than business as usual. You know, one of our presidents once said, the business of America is business. Well, I don't know if he was saying that's the way it should be, but or maybe he was just saying that's the way it has become. The business of America is business. Long for more than business as usual, who are truly hungry for a clearer purpose in life, and who will be satisfied only by the sharing of heaven on earth. This is a systemic uh, view. If you and Jesus, 2,000 years ago, but if you watch like Ken Burns's thing on the American buffalo, you're also getting the fact that the buffalo and the indigenous people on the planet, people we call Indians, sometimes that they co-evolved with each other for 10,000 years. It was a total system, and they had a systemic view of it. When a Native American Sioux killed a buffalo, they used every part of it, and they were in every part as they used it, they would have a chant that said, "This is sacred because this is a system that's allowing us to live." You see, so basic insight of a system is uh, well-being of any subsystem uh, depends on the well-being of the larger system. Yeah, and so we're talking about the larger system here, uh, and longing is in there. Ripening are the soulful who long for more than business as usual. Now, another word for that is desire. Now, depending on how you translate desire, it's the bugaboo of Buddhism. They say, "Oh, you suffer because of desires." Well, you got to really nuance that a little bit. The Buddha was onto something, even 500 years before Jesus. But desire is what you long for. Desire comes from the word star, by the way, And so the old idea that there's a destination for me up there, everybody had to star, everybody had a meaningful life. You had something to go towards, you see. So desire means a lot of different things, but um, in our culture, they manufacture desire. You got to realize we're in a really tough culture for this because every ad you see, the whole shebang, the whole business model is to manufacture desire. Okay, and so what Jesus is talking about here is a re-priority of desires, and I'm going to give you three desires that come out of this. Uh, if religion was doing its job, it would help you learn this. Buddhism certainly did. Jesus was certainly interested in it. So, what would be the prominent desire you would have if you understood the fact that we are living in a total system here? Well, it would be that the of planetary well-being. That's the major system we're in, and so that should be the desire number one, that the planet will be well. Think about that for a minute. Yeah, that's the first one because that's the largest system that we're living in. When Jesus called it, and then Jesus called it the kingdom of heaven, well, then we're in a planet in an entire cosmos, and we'll take in that system, in an entire universe. But let's just work with the system we're on and part of here. The big system here is the planet itself, and so that should be our first uh, concern, that is well. And then the second one would be the whole society around us, from family to friends to uh, culture, the nation. Okay, so the second one would be kind of just society and economies. We still haven't gotten anywhere close to that. Actually, we're going in the other direction in our culture. Our culture is our economy and our society is more unjust and unfair and unequal than it used to be. So that would be a second. Systems wise, you'd look at how well the culture's doing, the nation's doing, the your own friends, even your family is a bit of a society there. What's the well-being there? And then the third one would be the individual, your own well-being. Those are the three: the well-being of the planet, the well-being of society, which means uh, justice, equality, these kinds of things. And then the third one would be, well, your own well-being. Now, if Ayn Rand is in her grave, her hair is on fire now because uh, that's the first priority. And all these guys were walking around with Fountainhead and Ayn Rand, they're saying, well, if you no, that should be the first thing. And actually, that's what the ego says too: me, me, me. But it's important, but it's not the first thing. If you read Ayn Rand and Fountainhead, and the Republican Party latched onto this, they said no, personal gain will lead to gain for everybody else. So go out there, be an entrepreneur, make $20 billion, and you'll be happy. But then that'll spread out to everybody else. It hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. But it should be third, not first. So planet, society, including your own family, then finally yourself. Yeah. Now, when Jesus talked about it, they tried to nail him down on the priorities, and he said this. He said, well, you love God with your whole heart, a mind, soul, body. You love your neighbor as yourself. Now, that's really similarly the same thing. He's going systemically from the biggest system to the subsystems, and finally, as you love yourself. Yeah. So where would God fit into this system? Well, God is what holds the whole system together. Again, God's a verb, it's what we do. And so this is a really strong thing. I resonate with it strongly that we got to be, for me, Thoreau said, what's the good of having a mansion if you don't have a planet to put it on? Think about it. We're finding that out. So this is a kind of prioritizing of your desires, or reprioritize. Our desire is for more stuff, consume, consume, consume. And that's a whole other paradigm. That's what Rome was doing in Israel at the time. It was taking the raw materials and bringing them back that's what every colonial enterprise is. Every empire takes from a bunch of other places. That's how we got so rich. But it won't last. And you can't get around what the climate's doing now. So it's about priorities. Ripening are the soulful who long for more than business as usual, who are truly hungry for a clearer purpose in life. Those young kids working for the environment, people out there for peace, which comes in the second half, but this is the foundation of it. No justice, no peace is one of the things, and that is true. That is true. So that's a very powerful one. Now, when you get to the fifth one, it's we're moving more into a spiritual realm, uh, less less physical kind of thing. These are all very physical here. Your breath, the suffering, how to deal with the suffering, how to have an aspiration for for justice and equality and well-being for the planet, for society, for everybody, and then finally your own well-being. That's fine. But now we're going into the fifth is blessed are the merciful; they shall obtain mercy. It's almost like what this whole thing is. There's a karmic feedback on what you are. I rendered it this way.
You're frozen, Joe. We can't hear your take on that one. Please repeat.
Okay. Ripening are the gracious, who birth from their hearts the glowing warmth of mercy and compassion, rekindling again and again the most ancient cosmic fire. Now we're getting more cosmic here because the whole cosmos started at some point with, they think, 16.3 billion years ago. They've measured things in time and space, and they can come up with some kind of figure. But at some point, all this started, and it started with a fire. Started with what we call the Big Bang, and otherwise there would be nothing. We wouldn't be having this conversation. There's a sense of grace comes from all this, and graciousness is mercy. It's compassion, and it's a warmth. That's where the heart comes in for the first time in the words, the heart, because there's a kind of warmth. We need this kind of warmth. For Teilhard de Chardin, he said, love was the fire that made the universe. It's at the very center of everything that exists, is this kind of warmth. And this sense of, even when you're working for justice and peace and all those things, it comes from the heart, and there has to be a sense of warmth to it. So I like that rendering very much there. And mercy is a kind of warmth. When they asked Merton what his image of God was, he said, mercy, wave of mercy upon mercy upon mercy. Just warmth and compassion, forgiveness. Yeah. And I think it's getting actually in line with the whole cosmos. We tend to think that the cosmos is a lot of cold space. Well, there is that aspect, but there's also the fire. Every star is fire. Yeah, we're in line with that. We're connected with that. The next one, so we have ripening are the gracious in the next beatitude, which is blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. That's pretty big. They have the similar thing in the Oxfording pictures of the Buddhist, where you finally hit what people call enlightenment. You see God. Well, when I worked with this, it was interesting how it came out. Ripening are the spacious is the way I rendered it. Took me a long time to actually get that word. Ripening are the spacious, who were blind but now can see everyone in the cloister or on the street corner, shining just like the sun of the one and only original face. You might be hearing an echo of something there. Ripening are the spacious, who were blind but now can see everyone, whether in the cloister or on a street corner, shining just like the sun of the one and only original face. What does it mean to see God? Well, I'm channeling there what this was the sixth beatitude there is, I think, what Merton reached on that street corner. We have a monument to that on fourth and Muhammad Ali. It's the only monument I know, or the only historical marker to a religious experience. And that's what Merton saw on the street corner. Just everything flashed, and for a moment he saw everybody shining like the sun. I don't know what that would be like, but that's an image. And he realized that he wasn't special. You don't get this. He didn't get it behind the walls in the cloister, in the monastery. That prepared him to see it on the street, in the mundane. So the sacred and the mundane are not separated. You see. Now the spaciousness comes in. When they talk about purity of heart, Jesus talked about the speck in your eye. That's like remove the speck in your eye before you worry about the speck in your brother's eye. That's sort of the same image. He used so many images that interlock. Ripening are the spacious. So we fired up the heart, and the heart is the thing of ultimate space. That's why only the heart can hold all of this. The mind, has a certain amount of available space. Your computer will tell you that. You need more space, so you have to spend some money, go in the iCloud or something. But the heart is imminently spacious. It's the only thing that can hold everything, including opposites, including insanity, including the terrible beauty of the world. The mind cannot deal with all that, but the heart can hold it. And the heart can actually stop dividing the world between the sacred and the profane, between the cloister and the street corner, you see. Yeah. Everybody is reminding you of that original face of the origins. Now, so that was blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Well, what's left? Well, the next one is left. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Yeah, my take on that was simply ripening are the empty. So we're going from gracious to spacious to empty. Ripening are the empty, who can be peace in the very midst of war, who can truly be in the world but not of it, and who can become younger and younger with each passing day. I think that's what it means to become a child of God. Ripening are the empty, who can be peace in the very midst of war. Boy, we need that now. Who can truly be in the world but not of it. It's easy to pull yourself away from everything, and find your peace by just not looking at the news, by not worrying about what's going on with all these people. It's too much. I can't deal with it. Well, that's the whole idea of this grace and spaciousness, and now emptiness. Even it's when the Buddhists talk about emptiness, that means room for everything. You see, empty. You're starting to become empty of even your own likes and dislikes. You can be peace in the very midst of war. You can be in the world, but not of it. And you can become then younger with each passing day. Blake understood this beatitude. He says it's possible for the twice born man or woman to become younger and younger and younger as they approach death. Thich Nhat Hanh was like that. Dalai Lama is like that. Merton was like that. The people who have gone through these steps, whether they know them or not, whether there's a different tradition or not, they become, in a way, peace. They bring peace into a situation. It comes into the war, into this crazy world. They bring peace. Yeah, that this is all evolution now. It takes a long time to reach that. And then finally, the last one, which is to me the most profound one. It's where we're headed in uh, the transition came down to us. The last one, blessed are they uh, who are persecuted for justice sake. We're going back to that image from number 4. Blessed are those who are persecuted for justice sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Okay. And so my thing is, where we were ripening of the empty, and I say, and holy ripe are the lovers who have dared to dance beyond all social, racial, and national boundaries. Dance beyond all social, racial, and national boundaries in joyful service and glorious wedding to the beloved one. They shall disappear without a trace. Yeah, so holy ripe are the lovers. So you come to this point where you just are love. You're bringing love into every sense, every situation. Who have dared to dance beyond all social, racial, and national boundaries. All these boundaries, you know, uh, when you see a kid who's killed in war, it doesn't matter that they're Israeli, Ukrainian, or Gazan. Those boundaries don't mean anything. National boundaries, racial boundaries. You've grown beyond that, and you're just bringing this piece into sense of love. Yeah, that's to me uh, beautiful, and that's the end point. Really, is to become love. When you become love, you're totally connected to the whole system. Uh, when John said God is love, I think he's just saying that is the pattern that connects. So where's God in all this? God is the pattern that connects us all. We're not disconnected because, well, I'm a Jew and you're a Palestinian, or I'm an American and you're Chinese, so I have to hate you and all those things. No, it's a bigger system than that. Yeah. Uh, in a way, God is the center that is everywhere, and the circumference that's nowhere, as Merton liked to quote that from one of the fathers of the church. That God was the center that's everywhere, in you, me, everyone. So when Jesus said, "Kingdom of heaven is within you and among you," he was talking about that. Profound, profound. So these are to be meditated on, and if you like, maybe one of them really speaks to you. Well, then take some time with them. Okay. Well, I'm gonna share this on the screen now, and let's let it be up for 30 seconds or so, and then we'll end the session. And then I'll leave it up there for you guys during the break, or at least so guys who are listening uh, can see it. Yeah, there we go. So give it about 20 seconds, Cheryl, and then end the talk. Thanks for listening.